It's never sucrets.
They still make sucrets. Sucrets are not sucrets. They call it chloroform or something else. Like, they used to come in the metal tin.
Oh,
but they don't
really?
come in
Yeah.
the metal.
What's the
They come in like the
13th.
you gotta
Oh,
pop
it's not
them
Friday.
out.
At this time, I'll call into order the special council meeting for the city of Joliet for December 13th, 2021. The Honorable Mayor Bob Oderkirk presiding. Mayor?
We'll begin with roll call. Mayor Oderkirk.
Here.
Councilman Clement is absent. Councilwoman Gavin is absent. Councilman Guerrero.
Here.
Councilman Hug.
Present, thank you.
Councilman Morris.
Here.
Councilman Mudron.
Here.
Councilwoman Quillman.
Here.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Here.
First on the agenda is citizens to be heard on agenda items. Is there anyone present that would like to speak on the agenda item this evening?
Good evening, everybody. Eric Mattson, proud Joliet citizen and proud union president of Local 2369, your Fire Officers Association. I stand before you tonight thanking you for your time for this. We're just here looking for a position. We're looking for our pub ed position back. A couple of you guys up there remember back in 2007 and 8, when we went through the hard times, we lost our pub ed position through attrition. The guy retired and we lost it. We were upset with it then. We're still upset with it to this day. We feel that every year we talk to our city managers and what have you. We feel our citizens are being left out a little bit, but we understand. We understand and how it works and whatever. But if there's one more spot somewhere along the way, we could get back, and we'd love to have that spot back. We've been talking with our Deputy Chief Carey for at least 2 years now about a new program now out there that's called the CRR, Community Risk Reduction. It's all over the United States. It's pub ed on steroids is the way to put it. It's deeply embedded in the community. This guy isn't so much going out just doing school drills anymore, but he's going to neighborhood association meetings. He's just totally involved with it. He is a liaison between community affairs. I think I emailed a lot of it. If you guys have any, with the CRR, I'm not gonna take up all your time on CRR. It's too big to go over. But more importantly, what we do talk about is the Fitch study that was mentioned the other night. A few guys were here in 2017, we did the Fitch study. We spent, don't hold me to it, it was over $60,000 for that study. It was 1.5 inches thick. They had a lot of recommendations. I tell people it was a pretty decent working with the study. When it came, we didn't want to work with them. We thought, they're going to tear us apart and everything. When it all came said and done, they couldn't believe what a great fire department we had, except for the couple things that I've highlighted and sent to you guys. And one of them is the lack of a public education spot, which there's a lot of weight in this study. If there is anything, you spend a lot of money on a study, you might want to take any ideas out of it. Well, that's the biggest study that we had out of it. The biggest idea was get our pub ed spot back. That's all I'm asking for. I won't take up too much time, but if you got any questions, you can let us know and we'll work at it.
Questions?
Mayor, I have a
Yes.
question. Have we looked into any grants for this to help pay for this?
Under
the safer
CRR, there are
grant?
CRR grants. I per se have not done it, but there are grants allowed. With this community risk reduction program, it's through the USFA. The Fire Academy teaches classes on this. There are federal grants available for it. So, yes, but I don't know if we've researched it yet. We haven't had a need to research it yet. So I think if we allocate the spot for it, I think it'd be great.
Well, I was wondering if it's not possible this year, if we could get grants and then put it in the budget for next year, if we can't do it this year, would that be acceptable to you?
I'm honest.
I'm asking.
I'm gonna say no.
Not acceptable.
This is my fourth city manager.
Okay.
Since Hawk the first, Hales, Steve Jones, couldn't believe we didn't, everybody, we've gone through it and everybody said, a town of our size, why don't we have a
I
pub
don't
ed?
disagree with you, Eric.
And I
I'm just
know.
asking.
And I'm not, all I'm doing is asking.
Okay.
And you guys can, amongst yourselves, you can, for what it is worth, but
If we
that's
get
all
some
I can do.
grants, all the better.
Yes, and we're more prevention than we are anything, you know, and if we can, in this thing, we talk, and I'll tell you, when we're, you know, the blue shirts and us, the people who are out there doing it are doing it. We've gone through the heroin thing, the people who see stuff, the people who see the lady who doesn't have heat, you know, and you don't have a lot of time, and who do you turn to, and this and that, you see, and I tell people now, that and I'm not scaring anybody, but the next thing are these kids, kids with problems, we see it now, and it's gonna get worse. But if we can somehow get to them and figure something out before that, but there's not a whole lot of turning to it, because, and I don't know, I ramble, and I apologize. I didn't want to take up all your time. I'm just mentioning, this is something important. And it's not a spot, it's not a spot we want, or just to fill a vague, like something in there. We want somebody to do this spot. And you know, we lost the spot through attrition. If we give it a shot and something doesn't work, the guy leaves, guess what? We're not tied to it again. You know, hey, guess what? You lost it again through attrition. I think that's a gamble and a deal you guys can't pass up. And for what it's worth, hey, I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know every particular about it. I'm just throwing it out there. Maybe the chief can, if you have questions, if we want to lift the issue and raise it up, all I can do is say thanks and for your consideration at least. You know what I mean?
Any other questions? Yeah.
So Eric, this spot would be filled by someone new, someone that's currently on the force?
Yeah, right, that's what we're looking for. It would be a captain in the day spot, just like it was in our contract. We still have the CBA that recognizes a pub ed position. It's in the back of in the contract, and any funds available to it, we'll take the spot back. We'll put this guy in there, and the microscope's gonna be on him, the magnifying glass, whatever, the biggest thing in the world. Whoever takes this spot is gonna have to realize the responsibility that comes with this. And we won't take it lightly. We know this. This is important stuff. We've been wanting it for years. And it's not just us. The chief's office is, you know, they've been trying to do some of the work themselves, but you know, between doing stroke studies and new cardiac protocols, and there's only so much you can do. And if there's ever a time where you can get one more spot, hey, this is it. That's answer the question. Anybody?
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So you talk about this, what you think could be the next new problem for kids. How do you see that, you addressing that through this new position?
That's an excellent question, and I'm not 100% sure, but I know something has to happen. When you find kids that are 13-year-old kids that are getting high with the joint that's laced with something, and they don't even know it's laced, and that next you're thinking there's something wrong here. And I don't, but somebody has to come up with something. And if we could get to the problem before it gets any worse, and you know, the people without heat, that gets resolved. It might take a day or two, but when you find it out where, you know, the people have their oven going, and that's why they're CO'd, hey, you know, and we can educate them on that at that point. But sooner or later, a phone call has to get made. Hey, can you get over there and help somebody out? And we've done that in the past, but and it's all about education. We don't have anybody that goes to high rises anymore. We don't, you know, Christmas time, it's coming up now where, you know, if you got a live tree, our city is, and I'm not gonna tear it apart, but we're just not doing as good as we can. And we're doing what we can, but it's not good enough. How's that? You know?
Did everybody on the council get this copy?
Yes.
Okay, just checking. I read through it, very good.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good. Yeah. Anything else?
Another question?
Question
Yes.
here on the list of reasons why we need CRR. It's listed here, meet criteria for accreditation. Could you give just a little more explanation on what that means, what that entails?
Councilman, I'll stand up here. I don't think, and we would never, years ago, we tried to get accredited, and we probably will never try to get accredited again. Not so much that the police department knows what it takes, and it would take a huge investment. I think we would love to do it, wouldn't we, Chief?
The one thing through accreditation is different. There's kind of two different pathways. The ISO is the one that we predominantly rely on because ISO has a direct impact upon the taxpayers' cost of their homeowners insurance or their business insurance. So that's why we've predominantly traveled that path. The accreditation within the fire service is not as well defined as CALIA is within the police department. And that's why we lean towards the ISO rating. And just a few comments on this. Yes, this position was put in for during the period for our budget. However, we did not receive. But with that, just, so having gone through the course myself, so CRR, it's more of a fusion between inspections and public education. To say that one size fits all, I think they're leaning a little too far towards the fire side at this point, where I think we need to certainly lean heavier towards the EMS side, which is 90% of our current work. As far as what he had spoken about with information, is one of the big items with community risk reduction is the gathering of data. And instead of just throwing a blanket over the city, it's finding pocketed areas within the city or demographics that need additional support or education for problems that are going on in their area. So that is one of the guiding things. But I know he gave you some information, but I will tell you it's a concept more than a written plan, and you kind of build your own plan off that concept. Again, I would lean ours a little heavier towards the EMS side because that is 90% of the work that we're doing.
I'll just close. With the Fitch study, and on your one page, and I highlighted on a few of them, they said this is, you get the biggest return on your investment for it. I don't, when you talk about return on investment, how, it's just something to think about. That's what we're all about usually, 99% of the time, right? What do you, most bang for your buck? That's what we try to give, Thanks.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on the agenda item? Seeing none. The item on the agenda this evening is an ordinance approving the 2022 annual budget for the city of Joliet. An ordinance is for the levy and assessment of taxes for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2021 and ending December 31st, 2021, in and for the 1996 Joliet Special Service Area, number 14 Joliet City Center, and 2009 Joliet Special Service Area, number 7 Park Hill Subdivision. Ordinances for the levying and assessment of taxes for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2021 and ending December 31st, 2021, in and for the city of Joliet, including the Joliet Public Library, and an ordinance abating the taxes heretofore levied for the year 2021 to pay debt service on $3,665,000 general obligation bond, Series 2020A, and $6,535 general obligation bond, Series 2020B of the city of Joliet, Will and Kendall County, Illinois.
Jim or Jim Ghedotte, you want to go over the changes that you made since the last meeting?
Sure. I sent this out to everyone. So the capital project fund, which was the South Wing City Hall renovation reconfiguration, I got your message that that was not supported, so we took that out of the budget. That was $1 million. So that will be the original recommendation. So we subtracted $1 million. Additional police vehicle replacements. It was recommended by the council that we add 25 vehicles to the budget, so we went ahead and did that. So and that's what that looks like. Also, a graffiti van was mentioned. That the other one was the council would like to see a new graffiti van. Sidewalk replacement, we increased that by $500,000 and reduced the amount of money in the annual roadway service resurfacing program from $7 million to $650,000, which are $6,500,000, which reflects the additional money that was then transferred into the sidewalk replacement. In addition to that, we had the budget initially called for an addition of 10 additional police officers on top of our current end strength, and the city council asked for an additional 5 on top of that. So it would be 15 total new positions added to the Joliet Police Department. So those are the changes that were made from the budget.
Any questions or comments?
Oh, but I'll start tonight.
Okay.
Okay, a couple of things. Let's just swing back around to the grant that I was speaking of. Now, how long have we had this full-time grant writer on board here?
Just, how long has she been in the grant position? 2 months, 2 or 3 months. A little bit, maybe a little bit longer than that, I think, but, so I would
How many
say,
grants has she procured since she's been here?
well, I have,
Is it a he or she? I'm sorry.
it's a she.
Is she? Okay.
Hold on a second, I have that information here, Councilwoman.
It's on page 2 of the handout I gave you, grants over the past 3 years and current. If you look at page 2, you'll see that 2 of them have already been received, and we've applied for 7.9 million in total, above what we got in prior years.
But do we have an inventory of what those grants are for? I mean, I saw that, but I mean, exactly, is that one grant or several grants?
No, it's broken down, Councilwoman, on page 2 of the.
I didn't see it. Oh, sorry. Okay, you just got this. All right,
Yes,
hang on.
yes, ma'am.
Right here.
All right, too many papers up here, hang on.
That position started in August.
Yeah.
Right, I just wanted to know. Okay. What you got for the ambulance? But has she checked for anything that, okay, we have a safer grant in progress for is that 2 million?
Yes.
Okay. All right, that's good to know. All right, moving on from that then, the liaison for the police and fire board going from part-time to full-time. Now, I was wondering why that's needed. I did talk to Kathy Franson earlier today because my question is, police and fire board, they cancel a lot of meetings, so what exactly is the job description of this liaison that we need full-time now?
Especially in light of the fact that we're adding a significant amount of police officers. She assembles everyone's packet. She works with the testing folks. She does all the psychological evaluations, not her personally, but she assembles that, the physicals. She presents that all to the board. So I believe that is what some of the scope of her job. In addition, she sends out notice to all the meetings. So she works intimately with the police and fire board. I believe that Kathy has some additional duties that she would like to have her work on as well. So she's not here right now. So that's why I believe
Yeah,
she
so I
asked
talked to
for her.
Kathy, she
Right.
did say she was going to morph her into a bigger role, but it wasn't only the police and fire board, it was
Correct.
something in HR as well.
Yes, and I
So wouldn't that just be a new position then, or just take away that, or you're gonna?
well,
have
we're
a
trying
people-
not to add an entirely new position in it.
No, but I meant, sorry, excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt, go ahead.
No, we're trying not to just add another person and keep this person as a part-time person. There's enough work, more than enough work to keep that person, a part-time person, full-time. So without adding a full-time position, am I making sense to you, Councilwoman? I'm so sorry.
Oh, sure, clear as
Okay.
mud. All right,
That's why we're asking for that.
let's move on to the events coordinator. Okay, you and I talked about this last year.
Yes, ma'am.
And you want the PR person. Well, if we're bringing the newsletter back, I think that's a lot of PR for us, a lot of people like that, as the mayor had said the other day. And as far as coordinating events, Katie's been doing a fabulous job in your office. She's coordinating again the Santa send-off again. She did it last year, it was a very popular event. So I don't know what other events you would want to be coordinated.
Well, I think everything, not just for the Santa event, but for some of the things that we do here in the city for the various festivals that go on downtown. So we have one single point of contact. Everything from the prison to liaison with the museum, the prison, et cetera, Bide Park, to make sure that we're speaking on one voice with one message going forward, and make it a little bit more robust, in addition to the PR duties, which I believe are going to be significant on top of that as well.
Well, CED does all the events downtown Joliet, and every one of those establishments that you just mentioned, they all have their own event coordinator, so why can't they just run everything through, send it all to Katie and let her talk about it, and that's it?
Because that's not really her job description. She's an economic development person. So this is out of the scope, and we're asking her to do stuff that takes away from what is actually her primary function. We're just lumping it on her.
All right, we'll talk about that later. I'm not gonna talk about that publicly. Now, let's get down to what's near and dear here. Please explain to me your difference between 2 compliance officers and 2 code enforcement officers. Now, I had asked you for 2 building inspectors, which are sorely needed because there's so many things going on with permits in all the buildings and everybody coming around here building new things. And then besides the new housing and the old housing, we need certified building inspectors. So having said that, when I asked you about that, I also asked you for, so I don't know, between compliance and code, tell me your difference between compliance officer and code officer.
A code enforcement officer is somebody that's familiar with the Illinois state codes in terms of what's proper for wiring, the number of, let's say, smoke detectors, and that's what a code enforcer does. It enforces the Illinois state and city codes, and so that's it, what they do. A compliance officer is for when we get complaints about the length of grass, when we get complaints about debris in different places, when we get complaints about too many flags in the parkway, they're ratted out and they need to be redone. Those are what compliance officers do.
Well, you know, we have a lack of code enforcement throughout the city. And, you know, I mentioned this the other night, I'm just gonna repeat it again. You know, from illegally parked cars, unkept lawns, dilapidated signs, signs that aren't supposed to be where they're at, signs that are too big. Our neighborhood inspectors do not have time to do all that, or the building inspectors do not have time to do all that little stuff. Now, we have ordinances in our statute, but they're not enforced.
That's correct.
So if we could get, I think this is too many. I think the code enforcement we don't need, because I think a compliance officer could take a look, something's not wrong, report it to neighborhood services, and they would delegate it to the proper person, whereas the compliance officer, you're saying, is they'll write the tickets. They could write the tickets, and then they could come for a hearing. For example, the handicap parking. People park there all the time. We have $500 fines. Goes undone. People park there all the time. They don't care, because Joliet's not gonna write us a ticket. I'm gonna put my sign here, Joliet's not gonna write us a ticket. I don't have to cut my grass, because Joliet's not gonna write us a ticket right away. Eventually, it takes somebody from our building inspector department, one of the inspectors, to go over there, look at the grass, and then we have to hire someone to go cut the grass and bill those folks. So that's just a little bit, but in the end, they could pay for themselves through licensing and registration and inspection fees. So the other night, it was said that we just want this for the single-family rental homes, should that come to fruition. This is something that's needed all the time, whether that passes or not. Because the biggest argument there is, you can't do that because you don't have enough people to inspect. You can't do that because you don't have this. So, having said all that, I have ordinances here. Are they here? Did I get them? From all the municipalities. There should be enough copies. Everybody get a copy of this tonight? Yes. To take a look at all the surrounding areas that are here in Bolingbrook, Aurora, whoever. I might just quote myself, because I haven't had a chance to look at this. This is just on my thing, that have single-family ordinances. We are the only city around here that does not have such an ordinance, which really disturbs me, because now apartments are the new thing. And there's a project gonna be on the far west side. Right now, it's gonna come to us. And these are going to be single-family rental units. So we're not gonna have any inspectors going out there, even though they're brand new down the road, we need someone to inspect all this. And that would cover everything. Now, I challenge any of you people up here tonight to say that our city looks great. Our entrances are crappy, they're full of garbage, there's garbage all over. We need to bring our city back. It goes back to that broken window theory. We have to start fixing up our neighborhoods, we have to be on the ball, we have to hold these landlords responsible. So whether it's licensing them, I know, Mr. Caparella, you came up with the business license thing. Okay.
Right.
And, you know, so we'd make money there. We make money on, let's see, the codes, the ordinances. I mean, if we enforce our ordinances, these two positions will pay for themselves in the long run. And that will free up our building inspectors to do the job that they need to do because they're certified. And, we need them not to do the little piddly stuff. We need them to do the important stuff.
That's correct.
So my suggestion to this council, because we need to start working on our city here, not only with law enforcement and fire department and public works and water, but we need to bring our city back to the pretty city it used to be, because right now it's not very pretty. There's a lot of spots that are not good. And it just looks, I'm not gonna go any further because I love this town. I've been in this town 41 years. And I'm very disappointed in how it's looking. And that's why it's time that we started to enforce our ordinances and don't look the other way because everybody's getting away with this stuff and I've had enough of it. I've had enough of it and I've had many constituents and a lot of the things I brought here today were not all my ideas. These were some, the constituents that saw the last council meeting and brought these items up. So,
Right.
you know, I understand the aspect of this, but I think we need to hire these compliance officers and go forward. And if we need more later on down the road, if we do pass the single family rental ordinance, but I think they're overworked now, and I did want 2 building inspectors, and we only got 1 in this budget with these other 4 other people, but I think we can do with just 2 and eliminate those other 2, and possibly get another building inspector and or put those monies towards a different position. Or just put it in the budget, and then if it's not needed, it's there if we need it, and it's not there if we don't need it. We don't have to post it right away, but I think if we budget for it now, instead of going down the road, well, we can't do that because we didn't budget for it. Well, I say, let's look at this, and let's start taking pride in our city, because I get a lot of complaints about how dumpy Joliet's looking.
Right. To piggyback on what you're saying, I don't know if you recall, I gave you the numbers last time. 63% of what the code enforcement people are doing right now are exterior yard waste, trash, and weeds. So that would free those up to actually do code enforcement and have the other folks doing the compliance stuff and take that off their plate because they have training and the ability to look up codes and to do those kinds of things. So I just wanted to.
Well, whether it's 2 compliance or 2 code people, I think the code people could be also the compliance thing. So I say take 2 of these away and just keep 2 in the building inspector. We don't need 4 positions in that area.
Can I follow up on a question? What's the difference between what your code officers would do and a building inspector? It sounds like the code officers are at a higher level than the compliance.
They are at a higher level. They have to test into that job. You have to be able to go to the Illinois State code books, the various code books, and be able to point out various code violations. So you have to be familiar with that to be able to do that. Whereas a compliance officer just goes and says, hey, your grass is too long. Hey, you don't have your business license. Hey, you're parked in the handicap spot. So it's just kind of black and whitish. Whereas a code enforcement, it requires the fact to be able to research and determine what actual codes are being broken or not in compliance, or are not, you're not up to code, literally not up to code. So, this way we'll be able to keep those skilled positions better looking at code violations and have, lesser skilled folks in the compliance department being able to make sure that people are doing that. So, That's what I was thinking
Just
here.
to follow up on one of Jan's questions, back to the grants, so the 9.7 million, we have, been awarded this? or-
No, we have not been, those are the grants that we have applied for in total. I don't know what the,
The fire grant we received though. Or
Right.
Committed to us, right?
right, I mean, some of these we have received, Councilman. I don't know, Jim, if,
All right, thank you.
you're welcome.
The status of those grants are in the extreme left there. So if you look, you'll see 2 are received, and you'll see where we applied, and then we have 4 that are going out in January.
Thank you.
And Mayor, I'm just gonna add one more thing, in case folks don't know. The single-family rentals are the only buildings that are not inspected by the city. And if you go around town and go through the neighborhoods, you can tell the rental houses from the people that live there. Please, consider this. That's all I have to say, I'm done.
I wanted to just ask one question. I can't come up with the numbers quickly. You just said that the code inspectors would be, have a higher position than the compliance because of their education? Is that, or what they have to know?
They have a different skill set, yes.
Okay, because I can see where the code inspectors, they're coming in at a salary of like 56,000 starting. What is our other, I mean, what is?
I don't know. I know that the, whoever would be the department head for the code enforcement would naturally make more because they're a supervisory position. But I don't have that number off the top of my head. I'm sorry, Councilwoman.
Do you know that better than you, Jim?
Right now, they're both 56.
Yeah, the numbers in there are
Oh, that's 120.
440 right off the
Yeah.
contract. So since a compliance
Okay.
officer doesn't exist right now, we put in the number for a placeholder as a code inspector.
Okay.
But that, of course, is gonna be an added position, so at this point, we'll have to go to the union and discuss.
Right, we would have to negotiate duties and responsibilities for these positions with 440.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any comments, questions? Mayor?
Yes.
Since I was the one that asked for an accounting of the grants, the thing that's missing is who actually wrote the grants. I know the forestry grants were written by our arborist. I believe the fire department, it may have been Superman, Deputy Chief Carey, who wrote the SAFER grant. I'd like to know who wrote each of the grants and when they were awarded and when they were applied for, please. Okay? As I said, I used the term Monday and Tuesday anomaly and trend. And I do believe that the increase in revenues that you're basing your projections on and giving us 2 lists of hiring lists. One, for the ones that have been left vacant because of the COVID caution that we took, and those should be addressed. And we should get back to whole to where we were pre-COVID shutdown. The brand new ones you're trying to create, which is 27 of them, it's too early for that. I'll explain to you what I mean. We showed a 12% increase in revenues this year over last year, based on the year-end projection, which we have less than 2 weeks left in. And I only was able to go back to 2017. I'd be willing to bet a nickel 2016 falls in line as does 2015. The increase of revenue from 2017 to 2018 was 2.6%. The increase in revenue from 2018 for the city of Joliet, for the general fund revenue from 2018 to 2019 was 1.3%. The increase from 2019 to 2020 was 2.4%. The increase from 2020 to 2021 was 12.0%, or a little over 12%. Somebody see the anomaly in that? You know, we've never even broken 3% before. Now, with the cost of gasoline up 68%, with the cost of beef up 48%, with the cost of chicken up 35%, with the cost of eggs up 18%. I know we talk about 6.7 to 7.2 inflation. The inflation formula they use had been changed from the 1970s when it used to be based on staples. The actual inflation rate right now, when you base the staples that 80% of Americans live on, is closer to 30%. And that, friends, I insist, is why we're at 12%. And I hope to God it's not sustainable, because that means this country hasn't gotten inflation under control. And it may go up higher. You may actually be able to collect more taxes because inflation may go from the federally announced 6.7% to 8% to 10%. Like I said, I find it interesting. Chicken's up 35%, not 6%. Fruits and vegetables vary. Eggs are up 5%, if I remember correctly, from Bloomberg. So the increase in revenue in large part has to do with inflation, and then unexplained or untracked pent-up spending that happened during, we're one of the states that shut down completely and destroyed a lot of small businesses. And so when people were able to get out again, they started spending. That won't be sustainable. I suspect we may not see an increase of 1.3 to 2.6% next year over this year. We may see a decrease if inflation is actually tamed, if inflation is brought backwards, what we would call healthy deflation. So I don't think we should be adding any brand new positions. Now, the police department, all the departments, need to be made whole from what we left open for a year. The police department, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, we're at roughly 250. We had a brief conversation, and we want to get back to 270. I believe we had and I don't think that I understood that when you and I talked. I believe when I was looking into it, that we had a budget amendment earlier this year to add 10 additional policemen, and we haven't completely filled them because we had problems with scheduling to the academy. And now you've asked, with open positions funded but not, let me finish, not filled, for 10 more. So that would bring us to 270. Then on the second page, that's the 26 that we're filling, you're asking for an additional 10, which is a laudable goal, but not all at one time with inflation skyrocketing. But go ahead if you want to respond.
I didn't ask for, I don't believe I asked for a budget amendment to add 10 police officers. I just wanted to fill the 10 that we had been authorized but not filled.
Right, and then you're asking for 10, right.
So
Earlier
that
this year,
wasn't that wasn't really a budget.
earlier
because
this
it was
year,
already in the budget.
earlier this year, we did the same thing.
We didn't ask for more money. We just asked to fill the positions that we were authorized.
Right. So earlier this year, we did the same thing. So we're going from 250 to 270. And then you have that second page, you know what I'm referring to, of completely brand new created jobs like a public relations director we don't need.
That's correct.
That we need to hold off on. We can visit it in June. We can visit it in next year's budget. This is my opinion, folks. Again, like I said, we have to pay, and we have to pay without taking more and more money out of the taxpayers' pockets. And we have to make our best effort to speculate. I don't like to take risks with other people's money, to speculate on how sustainable it is. Again, when we have a history, as I think do other communities, of averaging, say, 1.5% to 4% of increase in revenue, when you have a sudden 12%, that's not a trend. That's an anomaly. And it will become a trend if we sustain that 12 and add at least 2 or 3% more over the next 3 years. To make commitments long-term and create positions that may not be able to be fully funded because that 12% dwindles next year and the year after, because God help us, I hope our inflation can be tamed. Otherwise, we got bigger fish to fry that the city council can't address. That's a national problem. So I'm back to what I said originally. We shouldn't be looking to be creating all these new positions. I certainly am a big cheerleader for the economic development department. You know that. But I am not in favor of filling the economic specialist, because I was told, this council was told when we created a brand new position there, community or economic development communications position, that would also be doing some of the specialist work. Well, then we don't need a specialist yet and we can't afford it. We have 2 members in that department, and we are not out of the COVID pandemic nightmare yet when it comes to the finances, when it comes to inflation, when it comes to folks who haven't gotten their earnings back up to where they were. So I would not support the addition of any brand new jobs. I am certainly in support of filling the ones, which would be page 1, 26 positions, that were at one point filled and we left open until we saw ourselves through the immediate effects of COVID during 2020. So that's my position. I wanted to share that with my fellow council members, that 12% that's predicating on this huge expansion. This would expand, by my calculations, our city staff during these uncertain times by 7 to 9%. That would be the increase in the number of people working for this, 7 to 9%. And we could never do that when we had an average of 2% increase in revenues. Now we have this anomaly of 12%. What are we gonna do to the folks when we create these brand-new positions and we can't pay for them a year from now? What are we gonna do? I think that we need to put on the brakes on that. We need to make the departments whole. We need to make sure that we get those 20 up to 270 for the police department, and then work as quickly as we can to watch and see what the economy does to add another 10. But it's too early to be adding brand-new positions that aren't even in any budget or weren't already existing and open. Those are the ones we address, making the city whole again.
Mayor, may I just address that?
Yeah,
Councilman, how can you say no to a position that will pay for itself and will bring in money? How can you say no?
Which position, Councilwoman?
I'm talking about either, whatever you want to call it, the code officer or the compliance officer.
Well, let me backtrack for 1 second. I do believe in creating that we have to create the new positions, which would be for the FOIA.
Inspector?
No,
The FOIA?
the police can't,
Okay, right.
we had a small group of people make a big deal out of it, and we tried to work that out, but the state of Illinois saw fit to vote that by 2023, we have to do it. So we're gonna do it. With that comes a cost, because there's gonna be a huge increase in people who think it's going to be interesting to FOIA body cams. We know that. We've seen other communities explain that. I think Krista can attest to that, just from FOIA's, not including body cams.
Correct.
So we have to have those positions. So I did forget that. These other positions, I've had nobody show me the numbers where it's going to pay for itself. If it's going to pay for itself, I'm on board. I have nothing in front of me. I have promises.
Understood, but, I mean, we have all these ordinances in place with fines, and they're not enforced.
Well, they're enforced as best as can be. I would respectfully disagree, and I would not say that my city looks crappy. I moved there in '87, and it looked really crappy in '87. I moved there because it looked crappy and it was cheap rent. It looks much nicer now than it did 10 years ago or 20 years ago, and it's got room for improvement. You are correct. But again, I'm all for adding any position that's going to literally pay for itself, not people telling me it's got to pay for itself. I'm sure it'll pay for itself. I asked that on Monday and Tuesday, show us how it's paying for itself.
But how can we, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
how can we prove it unless we try it? Why don't we try it and see what?
This entire budget is based on projections, so we need somebody to do some projections on what they think it's going to collect in fees. You know, I'm also not a huge fan of increasing budgets, to be frank, to get more people, to squeeze more money in fines and taxes out of the citizens. That's what they're trying to do in Washington with the Build Back Better program by hiring over 85,000 new, IRS agents. I'm not a fan of that kind of stuff.
But Councilman, a lot of these aren't residents that are breaking these rules in town. These are out-of-towners that are coming and doing this stuff.
Like, what rules would an out-of-towner
All
break?
right, you know what? Let's not argue. Let's
Well,
move on.
I'll
You
jump
have your
in
opinion.
if I can, just play devil's advocate, because I don't disagree with everything you said at all. But I think you're going a little, in my opinion, a little too far when you say no new positions. I think the case for the compliance officer or the code officer has been made well by Councilwoman Coleman and by the city manager. And I don't think it's a matter, I mean, the term compliance speaks for itself. It's not a matter of just collecting enough fines to pay your salary. The idea is to get people in compliance. There's a benefit to all. I don't know if there's any police officer that collects his salary back in traffic or parking tickets, but that's not their only role. Their role is to enforce the law, to uphold law and order in the city. And this is along those lines. So I don't have a problem with that. I think there's specific positions that probably could go, but there's others that should be considered. I wouldn't paint with a broad brush and say, don't bring any of them. And the only other comment I'll make, and again, it's not a criticism, just a debate, but when you talk about making commitments or creating positions, it's not a commitment. Our staff has been fluid, certainly since 2008. The older employees are here, know what I'm talking about. The numbers dropped in every department, and we managed, but it was a reaction to the recession by City Manager Tom Thanis. It's what the council had to do at the time. Jan, you were on the council. So we've seen ups and downs. We've been on and up. We've been hiring people back, which is good. But I wouldn't call it a commitment. You know, God forbid we get back in that position. A future council will make the same adjustment that past councils or past city managers did. So again, I don't want to.
No, that's fine, Mayor.
Be at
No
odds.
problem. No offense taken, but I will say again, that's great. I respect your opinion. I disagree. Nobody has shown how these will be, what kind of revenues they bring in. There's no projections. I'm a numbers guy. Have been a numbers guy for 10 years. Proud to be a numbers guy. I also have had nobody show me how we can define a 12% jump that we're basing creating new positions on is anything other than an anomaly when we have averaged less than 2.4% over the last 4 or 5 years, if not longer.
Jim Ghedotte, would you like to respond to that?
What's the question?
The
Jim?
12% projection,
Versus our history of averaging about 2 to 2.5% every year for the last definitely 4 or 5 years.
In the revenue, yes.
Yeah,
So we're having unprecedented revenues this year, no doubt about it. I think the ambulance, will be permanent, so I'm pretty sure that'll go up. All the real estate, I mean, we've had 2 years of record real estate, so, is it sustainable? I don't know. Who knows? It's hard to
Right.
say.
Thank you.
Especially with, if you want to look at regression analysis or trend analysis, year 2020 throws everything out of whack. So, and then 2021, it's the other way. So averaged out, I mean, we need to find a balance. And again, when the times were tough, last 2 years, we were, cut the budget and didn't fill positions. And now the times are good. If the times don't happen, we're not gonna hire all these positions overnight. So we can meet, I make a monthly report to the finance committee. If we don't see the revenues, then we could put a halt on the hiring of positions. Currently, what the city managers has recommended is 10 police officers that weren't filled last year, 10 new, plus he added 5, so that's 25 police officers. You don't hire them overnight. But again, we're gonna have a lot of retirements next year. So it has to be a nimble budget, it has to be fluid, and at times you cut and at times you add. So it's up to council, which positions we wanna add. And again, we added quite a bit of capital in this budget also, where we have waylaid capital projects for quite a while. So we gotta keep that in mind. And I guess I can't predict the future, as the councilman said, but you can base the budget on last year's or this year's. It's sometimes it's harder when you're having good revenue than when you have to cut. So I know that's not an answer, but that's best I can do at this point.
Mayor?
yes,
I would just respond. I was actually, Jim, 2020 fell right into the trend of all previous years. It was actually 2.4% increased revenue. This 12% is an anomaly.
That's correct.
And we
but-
should not
but
be
remember,
basing-
in 2020, we got $7 million of COVID relief money. So if you took
Well,
that
if I remember
out,
correctly, didn't you say you didn't include the 11 million in this?
that's for the 2021 budget and the 2022 budget. In 2020, we received CARES Act and Cures Act money of $7 million. So if you remember, I was predicting a $5 million deficit, but we actually added, and that can go right to the CARES Act and Cures. So we had $7 million that year. So if you take that off,
Then it would drop to about 1.3%.
it would show quite a
1.3%.
It would go down, yes.
Right, it would still be in trend with the other years.
And
It would still be in trend. The 2012, that these new positions, the new ones, not the filling of the other ones, are based on an anomaly of 12%. And that's not something we should be doing if we're long-term planners. That's all I have, Mayor.
okay. Pat,
Mr. Ghedotte, on the handout that you gave us on the second page, where it's talking about employee health care contributions, up $1 million, is that mostly be taken into consideration, the new hires? That went from 960 to 1921? Up at the top of the second page. Revenue in the general fund.
I'm looking, hold on. Yes,
Page 2.
so that would go down, correct.
Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah, Jim, I was just curious, I know, at our last meeting, and maybe you or, detective, I didn't demoted you, Carlos, Deputy Chief, Matlock. Chief Brown had mentioned a few times about the crime rate is high, and I realize we need police officers, and as I guess Mr. Ghedotte said tonight, we're gonna have a lot of officers retiring next year. But was there any conversation, Jim, about, I know a lot of, departments, and maybe we're doing it here, and that's why I'm asking, is looking toward, like health or mental health people to work with, with the public along with the, officers to go out on calls and things of that nature?
Actually, I can't address this, and I'm not, we were talking with the fire department specifically, Deputy Chief, and it's one of the things that we're working on with some of the projects is how do we get, because oftentimes when a policeman shows up at a domestic or something, it escalates the situation. Somebody's like, I'm not going to jail because, the only bag of tricks a police officer normally has is, you kind of cart them away. So we're trying to get some firefighters a little bit better with being able to talk. People accept the firefighter coming in there because they're there to usually help or take you someplace. A firefighter has more of an ability to be able, a firefighter doesn't take you to jail. A firefighter either takes you to a place of treatment or treats you there at the spot. So we're working on that. We're looking at various things that we can do. It's been a little bit more difficult than I thought. I thought I'd be able to just say, hey, listen, let's get some social workers out with some police officers and work it from that angle. But that doesn't seem to be as workable an idea as it is having a firefighter who oftentimes responds to these calls. And then we can have the firefighter and the police department respond. Maybe depending on the estimate, it's a training program with the dispatchers to find out, how dangerous it is. Do we have the police going first? Ideally, we'd have a firefighter knock on the door and say, hey, what's going on? Can I talk to you? What's wrong with you here today? And then have the policeman off so they don't think that they're necessarily going to go to jail. But how do you know what situation is where and when? So we're working on all that. It's an ongoing process. It's difficult. I hope to get there, and so that we're not necessarily taking people to jail all the time, but able to talk people down and maybe get them to a hospital if they need some treatment, or maybe they're off their meds a little bit. Because the firefighters are trained in those kinds of situations, whereas a police officer is not. And, so that's where that's at. So we are working on it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, thank you. I just feel that, preventive things.
I agree.
Will help, yeah. I mean, piggybacking on what Eric, spoke about earlier, so
Yes,
just along
absolutely.
those lines. I was just wondering had that came up.
Yes, we've had those conversations, yes.
Councilman, along with that, is the state of Illinois, there's a House Bill 2784. It's the Community Emergency Services and Support Act, also known as the Stephen Edwards Watts Act. There will be another number generated like 911. It will be 988, where people can call just for mental health issues. The police nor the fire department will respond. They will send, the county will be responsible for sending mental health professionals to go work with these people. If they do call 911, our dispatchers will vet that out, determine whether or not we need to be sent along with police, or it can be pushed to the 988 number.
Thank you.
Chief, you heard Mr. Manson's proposal. What would need to be done to your budget to add that officer?
We would have to upgrade one position to captain and then add one at the bottom.
And how feasible is that, Jim, to do?
Well, it's like anything else, Mayor. I don't know if do we need a full police captain to be able to do public education or not? Is that,
Fire captain.
do we send out a lieutenant to do public education? I don't know what that looks like, but it's certainly something that we can take a look at here. But again, it would, because as the chief said, we'd have to hire a captain and then add upgrade a lieutenant to a captain, and then add an additional firefighter at the bottom end as everything goes.
Traditionally, who filled that spot?
In the past, it was a full position. Right now, all of those ancillary items, whether it's public education, whether it is inspections and code enforcement within the fire service, that's being handled by myself. So if the crews go out and do a inspection and need enforcement, I'm the one that goes and writes the compliance ticket and goes to do adjudication. As far as scheduling anything with public education, we don't send anyone out to schools anymore. But we do still do touch of trucks. We do a little over 100 block parties and public education events per year. That is problematic for us because when I do send on-duty personnel, remember, first priority is response. So I always give the caveat to anyone that calls and requests that we will send an on-duty crew. However, if they don't arrive or have to depart suddenly, it's because a response takes precedent over the public education event.
And what was the rank of was it a captain that filled that spot?
It was, and that's why what they asked for the position of captain is in the CBA, going back to 2008, those positions have been held in abeyance, that they have ownership of those, and that position was a captain's rank.
Worked out
if
quite
that's-
well, and I hated to have to get rid of that, but at the time.
No, I was gonna say, if it requires a captain, that's what the CBA calls for, then we would have to be in compliance, Mayor. So I'm not even gonna argue that then. at that
Well, and I talked a couple minutes ago about what happened after 2008. That's one of the examples. So there's a lot of changes that were made internally, but I also understand the logic. The city's better off financially than we were 14 years ago. So. It's something I'd like to see considered. I know, I agree with the idea, the assessment about prevention. Again, that goes in line, Councilman McCormick, with what you're saying about compliance officers. It's get people to do the right thing before the fact, not after the fact, and have it come in and bang them. So,
Okay. Put
I
that
think
in.
overall, it's a good approach for the city to be taken. And quite frankly, it agrees with what you're saying about, the IRS agents and, again, if we could get people to do the right things up front, that's, I think, what we're all looking for. So having said that, I don't know if you want to take a straw poll tonight, or
All right, based on,
there's some objections. I guess I should ask, if someone's not gonna support your budget based on their objections. Probably be a fair way to do this, I think.
okay, I would add the public education officers,
Okay.
if you'd like. I mean, we have room in the budget to do that.
And then, I know Councilman Clement's out of town, he'll be back. I haven't talked to Councilwoman Gavin, do we know if she's gonna be in attendance at the meeting next week?
I do not know, Mayor. I have not spoken with the good councilwoman.
I'll put it out there, is there anyone who's a no vote right now?
As it sits now, yeah, I would not vote yes, if there's no change.
I wouldn't either until I find out what's going on here with the compliance officer, with the, code enforcement officers, safety, for the things that I mentioned.
Well, the proposal, Jim, is for,
That's correct. I had given out a proposal to add, it was compliance officers were, I think we were gonna add 4 compliance officers and 2, code inspectors. Is that right to you, Jim, off the top of your head?
It would be 2 compliance officers, a compliance supervisor, and 2 code inspectors.
That was it. It was 3 and 2,
okay.
That's
And now the extra fire position.
and the extra fire position.
Well, I said last time, I have an issue still with the gas tax. I know there's bonding out there, but again, I know how unpopular it was with people. And, we talked about inflation and prices going up. This isn't the right time to be gouging people. I would like to see that taken out. But I think I was the only one, maybe you were.
Yeah.
Only 2 of us said that, so it doesn't seem to be.
Mayor, I believe Jim Ghedotte said that essentially that's collateral for the bond.
That's
Am I,
correct.
I'm oversimplifying it, Jim?
Correct. I mean, if you wanted to, we could levy a property tax to cover that bond, but there's also 1.6 million in vehicles in the budget that we'd have to take out.
Well, and we're already gonna increase our levy, which means people will be paying more because their house is worth more, so. I'm not comfortable with that concept, but, it was laudable, Mayor, for you. You and I had talked about that, about trying to roll that back, because I would love to do that.
When is the bond paid back?
Well, let me find that out. December 15th, 2030 would be our last payment. We've already made.
Caesar, you'll still be here, so they should. Roll the gas
Mayor,
tax.
he'll be mayor by now.
Get rid of the gas tax, will you?
Mayor, if I could comment on the comment you made, that maybe nobody really noticed, that we're so much better off fiscally and financially than we were 14 years ago, right? That was through conservative budgeting, not a budget that takes advantage of an anomaly. And my last word on the subject. We've always been, to a certain degree, most of us have been conservative budgeters up here. And we really took this city back from the brink of bankruptcy in 2011. And we have done nothing but increase. We've kept our taxes as low as we could, notwithstanding the gas tax that was approved. But, this budget is not a conservative budget.
Any other objections?
You only got a straw poll out of myself and Councilwoman.
I asked who would not vote for it.
So everybody else would vote for
I'd
it?
like to see the changes that, I agree, this is too many people to be adding. Now, you've conceded that you don't feel it needs to be as many people as it is. I think that should be discussed further. If you're feeling that I get your point, that we want to have people taking over different roles as far as the inspections and the compliance and how that can, create funding. But again, to your point, it's just gonna be more funding coming out of our own residents. That's why I like the gas tax, because we have all these roads, the 80 and 55, that it's not Joliet residents paying this gas tax. It's people from all over the country that are contributing to our gas tax. And we hadn't had a plan in 20 years, except for taking funds from the general fund to support these vehicle replacements. So we now are using the funds from all these different people, not the Joliet residents, to support our funding for our replacement of vehicles. That being said, I can see where you're coming from to reduce the number of these employees for this department. I can see the need, but we'd have to revisit it to see how it's working as far as bringing in. Well, I guess I don't even want to say bringing in the revenue so much as I want to see it making a difference in how things are looking and how people are responding to the concerns that if I don't do what I'm supposed to do, it's going to cost me money, and we are now enforcing these ordinances. But I don't want to add 5 new people.
And I don't either.
So.
Okay.
Mayor, I have a specific employee question, so I guess I'd have to ask for closed session before I could comment on the budget.
Okay. And before we do that, then, do you want another workshop before the council meeting on the 21st? Is that what you're asking for?
I don't know that I know I can't be here on Wednesday and Thursday this week, so.
Mayor,
Yes.
sorry to interrupt. I think there was some discussion earlier today that there will be a special meeting scheduled for December 27th for the budget.
And did anyone just know who's gonna be here for that meeting?
Yeah,
I believe Mr. Ghedotte notified most of council today.
I got the call.
I did not.
okay.
Sorry, I left you a message. You probably
Okay.
got the wrong number. It's 3 council persons, including the mayor. I had to leave a message to. Councilman Guerrero was one. Betty, I had to leave a message to also, so.
Well, the problem with that, Jim, is theoretically, we're gonna have to vote. And I don't know if you wanna vote without everybody here. Unless everyone's committed to coming to 27th.
Well, you have to adopt that night.
I know we do. And that's why I'd rather not.
We could, call, put something on the next Monday's pre-council meeting, discuss the budget, so I can get direction from the council as to what to put into the adopted budget. But I will need direction before the 27th as to what numbers you want me and the city manager to put in the budget. So if you're not ready to give me direction tonight, my suggestion would be a week from tonight, add it to the pre-council meeting, and I could get direction that night to be adopted on. Would that be okay, Krista? It looks like you're frowning at me.
I'm not frowning, I'm sorry. No, there can be discussion at the pre-council meeting.
And
if
so it's
that's
on
the
the agenda
directive.
for a vote next Tuesday?
It would be voted on 2 weeks from tonight, the 27th.
How about voted next week, and we'll make the final adjustments Monday, the 20th, at the pre-council meeting?
We have to have 10 days for a public hearing, and we haven't called the public hearing yet. So that put the closest we could call, it would be December 24th, which is Christmas Eve, a Friday night. So that is why we suggested December 27th.
Mayor, I got one more question, budget related, Jim. If I remember, and I'm summarizing, when you talked about the 22.5 million, right? Spread over 2 years,
Correct.
you said that your estimate, unless the formula's changed from Washington, right?
Yes.
Where that 14 million could be revenue replacement or capital, make capital purchase. Why have we not used any of that revenue in next year's budget?
It is not budgeted next year. It's in there as revenue, so.
Right, but why haven't we assigned it? Did you, am I remembering this
Yeah,
incorrectly? Didn't you say about 14
Council will
million?
need to deliberate on that, so.
Didn't you say about 14 million would qualify under the existing formula at the time?
11 million would be revenue replacement based on the formula, but next year's, well, we suggested using body cameras for that 11 million, so it's a little over 9 million, which will have to be, because we had such good revenue in 2021, we can't say it's revenue replacement, so that 9 million would have to be designated for one of the 4 purposes that we went through when I did the American Rescue Plan.
Which included some capital investments.
It included capital, it includes infrastructure.
Right.
It includes payment for police and fire and essential workers. Mostly it's infrastructure, water and sewer infrastructure, so.
Roads,
Yes, we could do infrastructure with that. but-
sidewalks?
Yes, that's infrastructure, so.
You answered my question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I
Yes.
could, maybe in the hopes of being able to get to a settlement here this evening, how many folks are you looking at then for the compliance and code, Councilman? What would make you comfortable?
Well, at least, I thought we should have 2 building inspectors, and we did talk, because they're quite overwhelmed. They're
Okay.
very overwhelmed. And I feel it's sorely needed for our city to inspect these buildings. And the other thing would be a compliance officer or code enforcement, whatever you want to call it. See how that works. And if it's working well, then we can get a handle on it. And if, it is bringing in some revenue, then maybe we can take a look at adjusting the budget later on for another down the road if we need more than one.
Okay, because we were gonna, so you want to see 1 building inspector,
At least one more.
at least 1 building inspector.
Mm-hmm.
You would like to see 1 more code enforcement person.
Just 2. There's
2?
5 here.
Okay.
We don't need 5 right now.
Okay, but you want 1 building and 2 code enforcement.
Right.
Okay.
Or
That-
I'll
that
settle,
would-
I'll compromise one-on-one. But I would like to see something where this is enforced and then we can revisit it down the road.
I agree, we could always
And
revisit,
you don't
because we
have
don't
to
even know
hire-
if this is gonna get out of this
Right,
city
and
council.
if it were to pass, you don't have to hire right away.
That's correct.
You know what I
I
mean?
have to
Try one
negotiate.
and then have that position empty.
Councilwoman, do you find that something you could live with?
I do.
Okay, so I think that we have kind of a resolution on this. If,
So the plan was never to vote on it next week, because I thought that's what we were gonna do. I'm hearing now we can't.
We have to do the public notice, which is 10 days, unfortunately.
Well, I hope everyone can come back on the 27th. I'll be here, but that's taxing 2 days after Christmas.
I'm sorry, one more question. Is that going to include the new fire, to reinstate that captain's position?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm good.
Question, Mayor. With the cutbacks that you made in deference to Councilwoman, so then you would no longer need a compliance director or a supervisor at 120 grand a year, correct?
That would be correct.
So that will be gone too. Okay.
And the PR person's gone?
Yeah.
I don't know. A city our size, not to have a public relations director is insane. I mean, Will County has them, other communities do. I think we do ourselves a real disservice. by allowing others to tell our story and tell it incorrectly. I think we should do it ourselves.
All right. Well,
Well, if it's a PR person, I think that they should have had, much experience, not just fly by night or somebody here or there. I know who you had in mind. I don't agree with that, but I'm just gonna say it because I'll tell you privately why.
okay.
And, I think it's someone that should have had experience with the PR as far as promoting and not just someone that wants a job.
Councilwoman Gavin said she's gonna be at the meeting on the 27th.
Perfect.
And what I would add, Councilman Quillman, is the PR person, Mayor, I would just respectfully disagree. Whatever PR we do or don't have, we're heading towards $5 billion investment since 2014.
Right, how many people in this city know that?
I just announced it.
Yeah, because you're never gonna read it anywhere. I mean, we have, per capita, there's no other city in the state that's had growth that we've had here in Joliet. But that's not the story that's ever told about our city.
And it hasn't hurt us as a city.
It hasn't, but it's frustrating as the mayor that people don't realize how well we're doing financially and economically here.
Okay,
great.
Can I just ask this? I agree with you and I don't agree with you because how are you gonna get that message out? It's very hard to get our citizens, we don't have a newspaper that they all read, okay? They don't all have computers. How do you reach folks? How do you reach folks? How do you reach them anymore?
Well, that's what a PR person does.
I know, but how is that gonna make it any different? How are they gonna unless it's a computer or a newspaper or a newsletter?
Well,
A
certainly,
newsletter that's
well,
mailed.
you said most of them. The social media is where most people get their information today.
But a lot of
And
them
we fail
don't
at that.
read it. That's the thing.
I know a lot don't, but that doesn't mean that a lot do.
Well, I think you'd be better served to use a PR firm because you can't hire the experts that are in a PR firm. Just like we do with our IT department, we can't hire the hardware and software experts. That's why we do have a consulting firm and they send employees back and forth as we need them. Otherwise, we need to have over 35 IT employees, which we can't budget for. Same thing with a PR. A PR firm would serve us when we actually had a legitimate campaign we need to put out there. But a day-to-day PR person,
Well, that's the problem. A PR firm won't know the day-to-day workings of the city. Where someone who's employed here will.
PR firms don't know the day-to-day workings of the businesses or cities or any organization. That's why they're experts. They come in
Right,
and
but-
they can assess that.
But cities don't hire PR firms. They have a PR person, a PR director. Again, this is nothing
The cities-
special, excuse me, it's nothing special to Joliet. There's no city anywhere near our size that doesn't have that position. I mentioned Will County has it. It has always had that.
You mean the cities that we're seeing in our rearview mirror because we're doing so well with or without the messaging you're after, Mayor?
Yeah,
We're doing well economically and we're doing well developmentally.
Right, 100%.
No, not well, great.
And the point of the PR firm isn't to help with economic development.
Who's
That's what
gonna
the-
benefit from that?
Excuse me, that's what the economic development director does. PR firm puts the best foot forward for the city, which we don't get. You know we don't get that. Other city managers have come here and have said, 30-year veterans, they can't believe the negative media coverage. They've never seen a city where local papers do nothing but trash the city. So I've had 2 city managers that came from out of town, or actually 3 that complained about that, and they can't believe what's happening. So I think we do ourselves and our citizens a disservice by letting negativity rule the day. I think it's well needed. It's been overdue. It was, again, a position that existed here that was cut back after 2008. So we're not recreating the wheel. It wasn't Joliet previously, and I think it's long overdue to bring back.
With our successes, there's no need, I can speak for myself only, Mayor. I don't need a high-paid $90,000, $120,000 a year PR person to make me look good or make me look bad. You know, we're the elected officials. I don't see an advantage. If you really believe that the local medias are trashing the city, what's this PR person going to be the magic salve? We send out press releases.
It's not a magic salve, Council. And again, you're acting as if this position doesn't exist. Go look at Aurora, look at Waukegan, Springfield, Peoria, et cetera, and you're gonna see every city anywhere near our size would have a position like this filled.
Are any of
But I
them
guess
doing?
if you think you know more than the rest of them, that's your opinion. I disagree. I think it's long.
We're doing much better with development than the rest of them. very
Can I-
successful.
Yes,
What would this call, or what would the salary be for this position?
Jim Ghedotte, what's the salary for this
And is it
position?
full-time or part-time?
I think
Jim
it's
Ghedotte,
90
It's
grand,
budgeted at 90,000.
plus benefits, so 150 to 180.
Plus benefits, correct.
I'll quit and take that job, okay?
Okay, thank you.
all right. We have to go to executive session?
Yeah, I believe before that, and Sabrina, correct me if I'm incorrect on this, that it would be, recommended that we table the ordinances associated with the budget to a December 27th special meeting with continued discussions at the pre-council meeting on December 20th. So I believe that would be in order.
And that would be with all the new amendments? to
Right,
it?
yes.
Will you be sending them to us again?
Yes, I will,
Thank you.
absolutely.
So is there a motion to table the ordinances associated with the 2022 annual budget for the city of Joliet to December 27th, special meeting at 5:30, with continued discussions on the budget at the pre-council meeting held on December 20th?
So moved.
Second.
Did motion and seconded to approve. Councilman Guerrero,
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudron,
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman,
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next, is there a motion to go into closed session, to discuss personnel, after which the meeting will be adjourned?
So moved.
Second.
Been motion and seconded to approve. Councilman Guerrero,
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudron,
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman,
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Motion carried.